because most of my respondents here have actually indicated, that was ugly, most of my respondents here have actually indicated that they do believe that American teenagers are obsessed with money. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. So it has reinforced my thesis. And then I'm just going to recap for my reader. American teens are more obsessed with money. Now, I haven't used any data yet, so I want to do that. And I looked earlier at my data, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to say that 75% of my respondents indicated in favor of my thesis. There, I've used a statistic. Math teachers would be happy. So, 75% of respondents indicated in favor of my thesis. I want to use some more data too, because I just want to make sure that I'm very thorough here. I will say that, let me talk about this. I'm really curious how my teenagers were particularly hard on themselves here by indicating yes. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to comment on that because I can, and I'm an English person, and I think my opinion counts for everything. So, 75% of respondents indicated in favor of my thesis. Surprisingly, %. I just realized I wrote, I'll show you this. I wrote percent here and I drew the symbol here. That is not effective writing. That is not very presentable. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, and I'm going to write out percent. Percent of teenage respondents. Let me call your attention to this really quickly. Notice that as I thought that aloud to you, I said, my teenagers, right? Because I know that most of the people who took my survey were my students. But because I'm writing formally and I'm writing with formal style, I didn't call them my teenagers. I called them teenage respondents, which is just establishing that voice that we need to have when we're writing. So 92% of teenage respondents indicated in favor. You guys were pretty hard on yourselves here. So I feel like I could go on a little bit more here. I've stated 2 facts of data. I want to kind of make a correlation here. I did say up here that my results are inconclusive, but I have not proven my thesis. I want to explain why I don't think that I have proven my thesis. I feel as though a wider respondent pool would be necessary. To prove my thesis. Now, I've given a pretty comprehensive response to this. I'm not going to count that as a paragraph. I've only got 4 sentences, but it doesn't ask for a paragraph specifically. So I think that I've responded to every component of that question. You know what? Let me model good, let me model good review skills and go back. Summarize your findings in the space below. I think I've done that. Did you prove or disprove? I addressed that directly. Are the results inconclusive? Yes. Explain your answer referring to specific percentages. I did. So I've pretty much nailed that answer. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Select an idea from the survey and create a visual representation such as a graph, chart, table, map, or diagram to convey supporting data. Explain how this visual supports the survey data, anticipates readers' questions, and aids comprehension of information. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about my visual, right? So I need to create a visual and make a visual. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to take my chart here and just go ahead and redo it. Whoops. I was hoping that I could just click and copy it, but it doesn't look like that's going to be able to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a new one, which is what you'd have to do, so I might as well do it anyway. Okay. And I'm doing this, guys, because honestly, I could put this in a pie chart, but I just really don't feel like that's going to help me to understand it, and I really don't feel like it's necessary. So I'm going to go with, whoops, to reset my pen here. I'm going to go with adults. I'm going to go with teens. I'm going to go with both. And I'm going to say yes and no. And just divide it out like that. So I'm going to simply go up here. I'm going to copy this over 75% to 25%. Looks like a 23. So I'm going to say 75% to 25%. I'm going to say 63 to 37. Oop, that's not good. 63 to 37. And finally, I will go with 92 to 8. 92% to 8%. So now I have some data represented here. I want to explain to my reader what my question was, what that actually says, because it's not going to be a complete data table without that, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put down here are American teens obsessed? Did I put too many S's? I did. That's awful. Obsessed. With money. Now, I have my question, I have my data. It's organized into a table, which is what the question asked for. Now what I have to do is explain how this data does what. How this data supports the survey data, anticipates readers' questions, and aids comprehension of information. So I can explain how this data table actually presents the most critical data that I gathered, because the other data that I collected really ended up being interesting but not all that informative. So this is my best data set here. So I'm going to go ahead and indicate here the above table represents the most informative represents the most informative data collected.